Metroid Prime Remastered is filled with some incredible details, whether they are clever immersion techniques, fascinating lore entries, or just cool stuff in general, like this fountain. Now without further ado, let's go over the 108 cool details we found in Metroid Prime Remastered. Let's start from the very beginning at the title screen, set in a place with floating organs, tentacles, and a bunch of other slimy stuff. Turns out, it is the inside of a Metroid. It's as if they took the Super Metroid title screen and really zoomed in. Wicked cool and kinda gross. Now let's move on to the opening level, the frigate Orphon. By scanning a meteor fragment, the data will read, high concentration of radiation detected, planet of origin unknown. This scan was actually supposed to be in the original GameCube release, but it didn't work for some reason. Now it's here in the remaster, and it might be foreshadowing the planet Phase, introduced in Metroid Prime 3. This is due to the mention of high radiation levels, also emitted by the element Phazon, which we later find out comes from Phase. While it's not confirmed that this is foreshadowing, it's foreshadowing, come on! Oh, did I mention these asteroids can be shot and fragmented? It's quite fun! Another interesting detail in the frigate is that there's actually a Super Metroid enemy that you can't see. It's locked behind this door trying to break out. Scanning it reveals that there's a side hopper trapped within it. Unfortunately, we'll never see this creature outside of its containment for the rest of the game. Sad. While we're here, let's take a look at Meta Ridley, who, unlike his original form in the GameCube version, retains some of his purple skin along with his robotic enhancements. This can be seen much better later in the game in broad daylight. And as the frigate explodes and Samus chases Ridley, we can see the corpses of dead space pirates get blown away. Nasty. But now let's get into some smaller but just as cool details, like Samus's face reflected in her visor anytime she's exposed to bright light. This effect was already impressive in the original version, and it still is today. Her eyes blink, and they move in the direction you're turning. If they wanted to add extra immersion though, they could have made the game blink at the same time she did. Just an idea that's totally not annoying. Then there are these high quality particle effects. Look, I'm a sucker for some good looking particles in games, and these ones here are especially titillating. Almost as much as the detailed designs of space pirate computer monitors. These ones in Magmoor Caverns show imagery resembling the lava tubes on the right, perhaps analyzing their performance output. We then see rotating gears on these other monitors, including one at the top that's on the fritz. This one on the left shows some kind of purple element, probably found within the lava. Other monitors in the game have a different purple highlight, like these ones on the Orphon that show what looks like a parasite queen, which we also see on these giant orange screens, foreshadowing the battle that is to come. While we're on the space station, there are these invisible fences that appear when shooting or going up to them. From a design perspective, this is a clever way to add invisible walls in a game that's all about immersion. Something that can easily be broken if you're just walking along and a literal invisible wall prevents you from going any further. These invisible fences make sense within the game world, and they even return in the Phendrana Drift's research base, so players can't just vault over these fences into an unplayable area. You can even see the bases of the two towers by climbing high and jumping, meaning that the developers expected players to see them even though they'd have to go out of their way to do so. Back to more details, like these HD rumble footsteps. I'm really feeling it. There's also this wonderfully corny opening narration previously exclusive to the European version of the game.
The cosmos. In the vast universe, the history of humanity is but a flash of light from a lone star.
I love it. This narrator also returns whenever you load a save file, telling you where you are, although it doesn't get all the names right.
Talon Overworld, Chozo Ruins, Phazon Mines, Lava Caves, Ice Valley.
Let's get back to the game, as there are a lot of power cables inside the Orphon that run to like everything. The save stations even have cables too, more specifically, these ones that look connected to some kind of battery or underground power source. I'm gonna have to find the architect of these because they look surprisingly in-depth. Now let's look at some space pirate data, as some logs reveal that they are seriously afraid of Samus Aran. Yeah, they may look scary during combat, but make no mistake, these guys are spineless little cowards. After she killed most of them on Zebes, the pirates issued an all-points alert calling her armed and extremely dangerous. They're also curious about her suit and want to salvage as much as they can of it should she be terminated. They've even done some experiments of their own trying to replicate her morph ball to disastrous effects, horribly breaking and twisting 4 subjects in the process. Yikes. The pirates aren't totally useless though, as they made this sick-looking solar system map in the Phendrana Drifts Observatory. The planets in this system, dubbed FS-176, seem to have different orbits, though 2 of them appear perfectly synchronized. And after scanning a planet, you'll see its name pop up on the hologram in the space pirate language. Let's look at each one. Of course, there's Talon 4, the planet Samus is on right now, where the biosphere is slowly fading due to phazon radiation. Then there's Billium, which is under quarantine due to a sentient gaseous global exterminator virus. Wow, it was already scary, but now you had to make it sentient? Jeez. Moving on to Twin Tabula, a planet best known for twin fever, a disease that makes you see double until you die. Lovely. Up next is Dormine 2, an uninhabitable wasteland savaged by nuclear dust storms and constant seismic upheavals. Just another Thursday night for me. We've never seen these planets outside of the game, but maybe we'll see them again in Prime 4 or even a later entry? I hope not, because I don't want to go near that sentient virus planet or whatever it's called. However, there is one familiar planet in this system, and that is Zebes, the setting for the first Metroid, Zero Mission, and Super Metroid, revealing that it's in the same system as Talon 4. And that makes sense too, since the latter is where the pirates fled after Samus messed their stuff up in the first game. Given that it's inhospitable to most bioforms, Zebes was considered unremarkable until it became a base for space pirate forces. In conclusion, Star System FS-16 is the bad place. Don't go to it. Funny enough, this system was referenced in the Super Mario Bros. Movie on the news ticker stating that NASA detected a signal from FS-176. Yes, Metroid is now canon in the Mario movie universe. Do with that information what you will. While we're in the observatory though, what's the deal with these cracked walls? There has to be an interesting story about where these came from. It could just be structural damage over time, but I'd like to think something broke free in here and caused a ruckus of galactic proportions. What's really interesting about Metroid Prime though is that there are no magical floating platforms, as most of the high platforms are connected to the ground in some way, mostly built around walls or just straight up sticking out of them. Now some platforms are floating, but they're being levitated by rocket devices, not just floating on their own. It's really neat that the developers at Retro Studios gave contextual reasons why the platforms are where they are, a philosophy they continued in the new Donkey Kong Country games. There are a few exceptions though, like these platforms in the impact crater, but given that there are giant rocks floating around it outside, it can be implied this meteor has messed up the gravity in this part of the world. So no, they're not magically floating, it's all science.
Yes, science!
There are also these platforms in the underwater crashed frigate, but again, they're underwater, so it kind of makes sense how they're staying afloat. In fact, this whole area is impressive, as it's the opening level almost completely submerged in water, with damaged computer systems, aquatic enemies, and some rotting flesh. Ew. Also, this explosion releases a space pirate corpse. Yeah, this is not a game you want to be in if you're a space pirate corpse. The planet Talon 4 feels realistic, with the environment reacting to Samus's every move. The water ripples when it gets shot at, leaves also fall off trees when shot at, and speaking of getting shot at, there's a hidden game of Duck Hunt in the Chozo ruins. The immersion doesn't stop there. Some plants physically react to Samus's morph ball, a little too much honestly, and it even kicks up snow clouds in Phendrana Drifts. The morph ball also has a gyroscopic nature to it, balancing itself out as you go forward. Next, if you go to the Hunter Cave in Phendrana Drifts, you'll notice the reflection of Samus's arm cannon on the giant icicles. This also applies to the morph ball. And yet, they couldn't put in her Chozo Ruins reflection from the GameCube version. Sad. Now let's talk about the rain in the Talon overworld, as it's more dynamic than you might think. You'll see raindrops hit the visor as you look up, and not only can you see it hit the arm cannon, but it'll actually pour down the cannon if you look straight up. Attention to detail level, max. The rain even stops mid-air to hint that there's an invisible floating platform, although it doesn't do that for the rest of them. How strange. They also appear to be floating on their own, but given how this impact crater has had interesting effects on the entire planet, we'll just write off their floating and invisibility as a gravitational anomaly.
Yes, science!
Switching to the hotness of Magmoor Caverns, you can see heat shimmering off the ground because it's so dang hot. Even the thermal visor is completely engulfed in orange when activated down here. This logic also applies to the beams, as the ice beam shows up cold and the plasma beam boiling hot. And the beams also intensify in temperature when charged, notably the ice beam that gets way colder and the plasma beam way hotter. Yeah, the thermal visor is very accurate. You can even see the space pirates start losing the heat in their bodies when they die. Honestly, the visor in Metroid Prime is one of the most impressive parts of the game, as it actually interacts with the environment around you, or rather the environment interacts with it. You can see mist get on it, water droplets, monster blood, and ice whenever Samus gets frozen. Electrical enemies will also screw with it if they attack or get too close to Samus. Of course, the visor is helpful in combat, as it comes with a little aiming reticle that grows and shrinks depending on how close Samus is to a wall or enemy. But if you want to see really cool stuff, turn on the X-ray visor. That's where you can see how Samus's arm fits in the cannon. And if you were wondering why the symbols for the beams are different hand gestures, that's because those are the gestures she has to make in order to change to that beam. I still don't know how she pulls the triggers though. Does she just use her mind? I don't know. Anyway, this arm cannon is pretty versatile, especially the ice beam, which completely freezes over during charge shots. And I just found out that it can freeze flamethrower traps in Magmore caverns. I probably should have already known that because it makes too much sense. And if you're shooting the power beam in rapid succession for a long time, the cannon will emit smoke once you finally stop. The way Samus holds the gun is realistic too, as she raises it towards herself when she's close to a wall or looking towards the ground. She occasionally grabs hold of it with her left hand too, an animation from the GameCube version that activated during free aiming. The idle animations return as well once you turn on the classic controls, showing Samus hold her cannon in different ways or just lower it altogether. What's most interesting though is while the plasma beam is equipped, she will flip open a slot with buttons color-coded for each beam. I really do wonder how this arm cannon works, because doesn't she just change her hand positions to swap beams? Chozo technology is crazy, man. Just look at her power in various suits. One is clearly better than the other, but they both prevent Samus from taking any fall damage. It's not without a minor repercussion though, as she'll be stunned for a few seconds upon hitting the ground with an intense controller rumble. The suit also comes equipped with a Geiger counter that goes off if she's near Phazon, something we know has high levels of radiation. Thankfully, the Phazon suit can protect Samus from it, as displayed by an energy field that covers her entire body. Now let's focus on some interesting things we found in the game's world, like this random fish tank in the Phazon mines. I guess space pirates need to feel zen every now and then. There's also a fish tank in Phendrana Drifts, only it's not really a tank as much as it is a frozen compartment with frozen fish. Poor little fishies, although I do want to throw them in my air fryer. Going back to the Phazon mines real quick, this elevator shaft has a tall window exposing the outside looking right at the impact crater. This is a neat little detail that makes the world of Talon 4 feel more interconnected. Now let's go to the Life Grove in the Talon overworld, which has two big trees with connecting branches, which is unique for this planet. Wait a minute, doesn't that mean it's actually one tree? I'm no treeologist or whatever they're called, but that seems to be the case. I'm also no wall writingologist, but these are definitely wall writings in the Chozo ruins. While these particular markings aren't scannable, these holographic signs with similar markings are, and they simply translate to directions like passageway to shrine. It would be so cool to scan these other ones though and read more on the rich history of the Chozo. Though I suspect these 12 rows of elevator markings are supposed to represent the 12 Chozo artifacts. But I really want to talk about this meditation fountain found in a room in the Chozo ruins called Meditation Fountain. It's such a nice little touch to this world, showing the artistry of the Chozo as well as their desire for peace. You know, as long as their name isn't Ravenbeak. What's really interesting though are the data pods in this room that when scanned read, when decay flows, the hatchling will walk a poisoned path to the source. The time of prophecy draws ever closer. It is said that when the plants wilt and the creatures change and all life fades, the newborn will descend from the sky. Now, the terms hatchling and newborn refer to the game's antagonist, the Metroid Prime, who came to the planet via meteor 50 years prior, spreading the poisonous substance Phazon to wilt the plants, change the creatures, and basically fade all life from Talon 4. These haunting details provide more foreshadowing for the events to come in the final battle, located inside the impact crater. While this may look like a giant rock on the outside, the inside is unsettling. You may notice the orange Phazon at first, which can burn through Samus's Phazon suit, But if you look around, you'll notice that the place looks like the insides of a giant organism. There's textures that resemble flesh, along with structures that look like bones. This gross aesthetic continued in Metroid Prime 3, where Samus entered other meteors like this one, only they were significantly more blue than orange. They also had way more moving parts than the one in Talon 4, proving that these meteors really are living things on their own. Finally, there's the Metroid Prime itself, with a spider-like exoskeleton luring Samus deeper within the meteor, where we see pillars that look like sharp teeth, perhaps implying she's in the mouth of the beast. And the belly of the beast is where the final phase of the boss battle takes place. The Metroid Prime's exoskeleton is destroyed, revealing its true form, looking nothing like a Metroid, so why is it even called a Metroid Prime? I don't know. After she defeats it and leaves the crater, she takes off her helmet, revealing the most realistic human face in a Nintendo game. And no, those Super Mario Odyssey humans don't count. They still give me nightmares. Will Samus look like this in Metroid Prime 4, or even Prime 2 and 3 Remastered? Only time will tell, and if you're new to the series, you might wonder why the trilogy is called Metroid Prime if Samus killed it in the first game. Well, she didn't. Before it imploded, it snatched her Phazon suit, and in the post-credits scene, it emerges from a Phazon puddle, teasing the existence of Dark Samus for the next 2 games. So, the final cool detail in Metroid Prime Remastered is the revelation that the Metroid Prime is indeed the antagonist of the entire trilogy. Now those were a lot of cool details in Metroid Prime Remastered, but there are a couple of things missed in this version that were in the original. I already mentioned the missing Samus reflection in Chozo Ruins, but there isn't any beam lighting in the remaster either. I understand there were developmental reasons why this was cut, but it's still a bummer to see. Then there's the impact crater, which we could see from space in the original, not so much in the remaster. Why? It was such an awesome detail. And tragically, since this game is on a cartridge, that means we don't have a disc that resembles a morph ball. Regardless, all of these show just how much depth the developers at Retro Studios put into this game's environments, physics, and mechanics to make this game world feel real. This was true with the 2002 original and the 2023 remaster, which made a lot of those details shine brighter with a new coat of paint. So let us know in the comments which details you appreciate the most, and tell us if there's anything else we might have missed. Until next time, bye bye.